Hi everyone, Crista Cowan here with another episode of The Barefoot Genealogist. It is time for our monthly edition of What's New at Ancestry. This is for November 2017. Let's start with a quick look at the upcoming genealogical events for 2018. It's never too soon to start planning, and some of these events, registration is already open. The conference rate for the local hotels is already available, so I would encourage you, as you're looking at your money and time budget for 2018, to consider attending one of these events. The largest genealogical conference, of course, is Roots Tech. That will be the 28th of March, or the 28th of February through the 3rd of March this coming year in Salt Lake City. The National Genealogical Society's annual conference will be in Grand Rapids, Michigan this year, the 2nd through the 5th of May. The Southern California Genealogical Jamboree will be held in Burbank, California this year, the 31st of May through the 3rd of June. I know that the first day of that event will be a writing conference and a DNA conference, and then the regular conference will be held Friday and Saturday. The 6th through the 10th of August, the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies annual conference will be held in Warsaw, Poland this year. And then the Federation of Genealogical Societies annual conference will be the 22nd through the 25th of August in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Now, as always, you can visit conferencekeeper.org, where some wonderful members of the genealogical community keep a running calendar of genealogical events, these national ones that I've listed here, as well as state and local events and events around the world. So maybe if you can't attend one of the larger national events, you can attend an event closer to home. So hopefully you will plan on attending one of those events. Ancestry will be in attendance, including myself, and I always love to meet you, so maybe consider that. Let's talk about a change that was made to the site, particularly to your trees, this last month. It is the notes notification. Now, if you've spent any amount of time with me, you know that I am a heavy user of the notes on a profile page. Now, my tree is public, which means any one of you could go out and search for my great-grandfather here and you could find my tree. However, any research notes or person notes that I make on that account are private, so I'm the only one who can see them. One of the challenges has been that you have to open up the notes panel to see if notes exist. And so now you'll notice this new little icon here, I've circled it in red on your screen, now appears in the profile header if there are notes for that person. So as the researcher, as the tree owner, I'm the one who's going to see that. Nobody else will be able to see if there are notes or not, because again, even though my tree is public, those research notes are private. If you want your notes to be public, you need to put them in the facts or create a story in the gallery. I like to keep my research notes private until I've completed the research on a person, and then occasionally I will publish those. Also, the other little notification there you're going to see is for comments. So anyone, tree owner or not, anyone can make a comment on a profile on a public tree or a private tree that has been shared with them. And so that little comment notification now will just let people know, again, in the header right on the profile page, if there are comments about this particular profile. For those of you who are new to family history, that's certainly something to get in the habit of looking for. If there have been comments made on a tree, maybe there's some information that's in dispute between a couple of researchers based on information that they have gleaned, and that will allow you to make the decision about whether or not this really is your person and is this information really accurate or not by reviewing those comments. So again, notes notification and comments notification has been added to the header on the profile page in your tree where those things exist. You're not going to see those little icons if there are no notes or no comments. Okay, let's wrap it up today by talking about content. So this past month, Ancestry added more than 14 million new genealogical records to the site. If you've never joined us for a What's New episode before, let me just briefly show you how you can keep up with what's new on Ancestry throughout the month. If you click on search, and then you come down here and you click on card catalog, you're going to be able to sort the card catalog by date added. That will put all of the new content at the top of the list. And then if you hover over any particular database, you'll get a little pop-up card that tells you what date that particular set of records was published to the site on. So let's talk first about New York births for 1910 through 1965. This database has 7-point-some odd million records in it. Anytime you see a new database on Ancestry that you've never used before, I always encourage you to scroll down past the search box, read that database description, read the source information so that you understand where the records were obtained from, and so that you understand a little bit about them. In this case, you can also browse the records. You can just go to a specific year and then look through them that way. But keep in mind that this is an index. So that's what the state of New York has shared with us, is an index to the births that occurred in that time period in New York City. And it is not an actual copy of the birth record. So the purpose of an index is so that you know that a record exists and that you can go order the original from the state or the city so that you can get access to the additional information that is always available, well, almost always available on the original record. So indexes, original records. The purpose of an index is to get you to the original record. It is not meant to be a transcription of the original record. So you always want to order the original because it very, very often will have additional information on it. Again, that's New York City births, 1910 to 1965, and there's about almost 8 million records in that single collection. Next up, we have some Catholic records that have come online. Now, every country and every jurisdiction within a country handles their birth, marriage, and death records differently at a government level and at a church level. And so one of the things that happens is we get these collections of records available online. And sometimes they're for really broad things, like we might have the California Birth Index that covers the whole state of California starting in 1906 and going through 1997. That's great. However, sometimes records are kept different, like these New York births. Well, that's for the city only, right? The state keeps records differently outside of the city of New York, and they're going to be for different time periods. Same thing for church records. Sometimes we can get large collections of church records because the church itself has aggregated those records, or some other archive or entity has aggregated those records. And sometimes they're just for a very specific place. But even when they're for a very specific place, especially if your ancestors from there, that's fantastic. So we have this collection, for example, of Salzburg, Austria, Catholic baptisms, marriages, and burials, date all the way back to 1600, go all the way through 1930. There's a couple million records in this singular database. And so certainly something worth investigating. Now the browse is done by parish. So like most international research outside of the United States, even inside of the United States to some degree, it's really important to figure out where your ancestor was from so that you know you've got the right person. So the more details you can gather along the way about where they're from, the more likely you are to identify the right person in the successive records that you are able to locate. If you don't have any of that detail, or if you can't kind of analyze groups of records in context, there's a very real risk that you run of identifying the wrong person. A lot of times, even with names that we think are super unique, chances are there's going to be somebody else with that same name who's about the same age living in the same place, sometimes 10 or 12 somebodies depending on the name. I was working with a John Smith last night while doing some research, so don't even get me started. But the idea is that the more information you can collect along the way, the more accurate your research is going to be as you continue on. So in this case, the parish records for Salzburg, Austria, the Catholic records are broken down by parish. So if you know the specific parish, you can go just to that parish and search that parish. If you don't, you can just search by name, but keep in mind there could be several of them there that you need to filter through. Also, for these Salzburg, Austria records, like most of the international records that are non-English language records in the Ancestry collection, they are going to be in the original language of the records. So these records are in German, and I believe there might even be some of them in this collection that are in Latin. And so shouldn't be a huge barrier to your research. I happen to use Google Translate. I don't speak German or Latin, but I've learned just enough keywords over time because I use a translate service like Google Translate that allows me to be able to interpret or understand what it is I'm looking at. Now, if I come across a record that's got a lot of text, really text heavy or prose heavy, as opposed to a form or a fielded record, I might enlist the help of a genealogist, a professional genealogist who specializes in that language and in that type of record, just to translate a document for me. But typically, I can mostly get by with just using a translation service like Google Translate. So these records are in German, fantastic collection, a couple million records dating all the way back to the 1600s. Also in German, we have another set of records, and I wanted to highlight this set of records because they're a little bit unique. Actually, if I come over here to the card catalog and we scroll down, let me zoom in a little so you can see it a little bit better, and then we scroll down here, what you're going to notice is this particular set of records, right here they are, these military recruitment lists from 1828 to 1888 out of Germany, again for a very specific state in Germany. You'll notice it has a 0 record count. Now, we don't see that very often. Typically, we'll see, some of them have some record count, might be small, might be 1 million or more, or a couple 100,000. But this particular set of records has a 0 record count. And when you look at when you click through to view the database, hopefully you'll be able to figure out why. You'll notice there is no search box. So occasionally, Ancestry receives collections of records. In this case, we got these from the state archive in that location in Germany. And we have not yet indexed the records. So we haven't had somebody go through and read every single record and key in the information to make it searchable. But we don't want to hold on to these records until they're indexed. We want to make them available to you as quickly as possible. And so in this case, this particular set of records has been placed online in what we call a browse-only situation, which means as it is, the records in this collection, they'll never come up as a hint, they'll never come up as a suggested record, they'll never come up in search. The only way you'll find them is going into the card catalog. If you're doing a search for German military records, this database would show up, you would come here, and then, and this is just like you would do with a reel of microfilm in a library, you would just go to, through the browse here and go to the specific year, for example, that you were interested in. And from there, it will take you to a set of records or a set of images, 380 of them. I've got a film strip down here so I could zip through quickly and jump to a particular image. I can drop that film strip so I have more real estate here. I've got some things I can do over here with the image to drag and enlarge and look at that information. If it was me researching in these records, I would go and have all those headers translated so that I understood what it was I was looking at or looking for in this particular set of records. So really great resource, but again, it is what we call browse only. So the only way you're going to find it is through the card catalog and then browsing the records like you would a reel of microfilm. Makes you feel a little bit like a detective, a little bit like you're doing genealogy the old-fashioned way, but really not that old-fashioned. There are still a lot of records that I access this way, both on Ancestry and on microfilm through various libraries and archives throughout the world. Okay, last set of records I just want to highlight today. This is, again, the point I just want to make with this particular record collection, and there's dozens of things we released, dozens of record collections we released this month, but highlighting just a few of them here. With this one, again, one of the things that we sometimes get stuck in our heads is, how come I can't just search all marriages in the United States, or how come I can't just search all marriages for the state of New Mexico? Well, sometimes the way that Ancestry obtains the records is just from a specific town or a specific county or a specific location for a certain time period. And that's the case here. We have these Bernalillo County, New Mexico marriage records. It is an index to the marriage records. It dates from 1888, but it goes all the way up through 2017. So one of the things that you may or may not be aware of is also here in the United States in particular, every state controls their own privacy and access laws when it comes to what records are available. In most states, a marriage record is considered a public record, which means they're readily available, or at least the index to the records are readily available, and then you can order the original directly from the state, or the county in this case. In most states, birth records have some kind of privacy law, 100 years, 50 years, 75 years, but in some states, those are considered public record. So every state is different. So depending on where it is that you're looking for your records, or your parents or your grandparents or your great-grandparents, it all depends on the state. So again, I just encourage you to use that card catalog. If you're not really familiar with how to use the card catalog, on the YouTube channel here, I do have an entire video about how to use the card catalog. I would strongly encourage you to watch that so that you can get familiar with getting into and out of the records a little bit easier. Mostly just to see what's available and what's not available, because I don't want you to spend a whole lot of time searching and searching and searching for something and getting frustrated that you're not finding it, only to later discover, well, that record doesn't actually exist because Oklahoma has a 100-year privacy law on their birth records. If you can just check the card catalog first, see if the record you're looking for even exists, it'll save you some time and some energy and a little bit of frustration. Well, that is what's new this month for November 2017. I do have the topics for episodes of the Barefoot Genealogist for the remainder of November and December already posted to the Ancestry Facebook page. So if you just go to Facebook, look for Ancestry.com. On the Ancestry.com Facebook page, click on events. You'll see the complete listing there. I would encourage you to RSVP for the topics that you're interested in, because then what happens is once this video has been recorded and uploaded to YouTube, a link gets posted to that event on Facebook that notifies you, if you've RSVP'd that you're going to be there, that the video is ready. And that way you don't have to keep checking the YouTube channel. You don't have to try to remember when are they uploaded. If I ever have any technical difficulties getting the video uploaded, which happens more commonly than I would like, then you just have that event there and you're going to get notified as soon as the video is available. And then as always, if you have suggestions for topics you would like discussed in the future, please feel free to email me at ask@ancestry.com. Put something in the subject line about video suggestions or my name to call attention to it, and we will see about getting those on the calendar for the new year. Until next time, this is Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.